Hey, friends, welcome back to the podcast. I thought it'd be fun today. I don't know, maybe fun is not the right word. I thought it'd be good for us to talk a little bit about social media today. I'm often asked the question, I feel like it's one of the earliest questions I ever spoke on or talked about in conferences is the question, how do you navigate social media as a creative author, artist, content creator? How do you navigate social media without losing your soul, without losing your mind, without giving up altogether? Anybody else in this room, can we just raise our hands if we want to, if we have dreamt about quitting social media when, or felt burnt out, or like I have nothing to say, or this is tyrannous, or I'm sick and tired of this? Yes, 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 yes. If you're nodding your head, um, today's episode is for you, especially if you are a creative or a content creator or desire to use your social media as a public platform in any way. If you're tuning in and you have a private account on social media, or you're not even on social media, but you've just kind of wondered, how does somebody honor the Lord and navigate social media in a way that's Christ exalting and is beneficial but doesn't suck their soul? Well, here we are. We're going to talk about it today. So, are you ready for it? I hope this is going to be helpful, because I've really needed this conversation. I want you to know right at the start that I wrote the afterword for a book called Social Sanity in an Insta World. That is hard to say. Social Sanity in an Insta World. And it was co-written with many contributors, including Jen Wilkin and Melissa Kruger, Laura Wiffler, some of my dearest friends, Gretchen Saffels. And I wrote the afterword specifically for content creators. We're not going to talk specifically about content creation today, but I want you to know my perspective as somebody who has been on social media for over 15 years. Well, social media, online, the whole thing, Facebook, social media, platforms, blogging. My life has been online for over 15 years. And I would say in this time frame, I've been super excited about social media, and I've been ready to quit it altogether. And I know so many have chosen to leave social media for really good reasons. And so that is a decision that each one of us has to make on their own. But today, my hope is to engage where we consider how we can navigate social media um, in an intentional way, in a Christ exalting way. And I'm going to share with you my 5 guardrails as a creative um, content creator, an entrepreneur, as an author on social media without losing my mind and without getting my soul wrenched out of me. So, a little dramatic, but sometimes it feels that way. I think we all know the pros and cons of social media. And if you haven't thought through them, I would say, I'm sure you could add plenty to my list, but it's so great. It's so great to experience connection, that you can find somehow globally people who enjoy watercolor, enjoy crocheting, who love God's word, or eat kale. I mean, you can find lots and lots of connections in ways that would be a little bit harder otherwise. Your actual local community might be limited in the people who you can find, and stories you can swap, and knowledge you can exchange with each other. That may be limited in your local community, even though we all know it's still the best to have in person relationships. But the internet is an incredible place. Social media is an incredible place for us to share and to experience um, a little bit of someone else's stories. Um, I, for one, am incredibly grateful that a stay at home mama of 6, over a decade of just homeschooling and working through local church ministry, could get my words out into the World Wide Web somehow, and have my words impact others' lives and ultimately turn into published books that would go around the world. that's an incredible thing that happened as a result of the opportunities through the internet, through social media, through um, blogging, and through networks online. So we know there's a lot of pros. And quite frankly, as somebody who is an aesthetic creator, as an artist, Instagram was super fun for me. I mean, playing with filters, thinking about composition of a photo, considering what story I could tell from what point of view. I'm really, really into that. However, there's a whole other side, and I will try not to digress, but we're now in a season where if you want to make it on social media, if you want to um, beat the algorithm or whatever, you kind of now have to be a video director, a script writer. You have to like somehow film that and then edit it and caption it just right and put it to the right music and also cut and clip and tell the story from your point of view. And it's got to be authentic, but not so authentic that you're not being an authority. But then you need to be an authority, but also trustworthy. So then you got to be raw and real, and you got to have a hook. It's got to be visual, and it's also got to be audio. The hook has to cause people to stop scrolling in the first 5 seconds, or else you don't have their attention. Even if you have something really valuable to say, don't even try it unless you've got them in the first 5 seconds. And so not only do you have to be an incredible script writer and a video producer, director, producer, stage designer, everything has to come together to even create content now. So I don't blame you if you feel tired. For those of us, and I'm looking at all my friends who are in their mid, late 40s, to all of my peers who maybe remember a world in which they could simply write a few words and post it with a picture, and the picture could be not pretty. I feel ya. I mean, we just are in a different time. We are in a different time. I totally digress, but I wanted you to feel seen and known and loved in this moment. If you struggle with all of that, if you scroll and go, what in the world? How could I ever even create at that level? And I just want to say, I am an actual artist and an aesthetic creator, and I feel exhausted sometimes. So, and then of course we know all the cons, right? We know the cons because I just described it. The cons are we're kind of told what to do to succeed. It's not just your own creativity, it's your creativity within a paradigm that somebody else is changing constantly, right? It might be that a filter is right for the season. Then it turns into a carousel, and then it turns into a reel. Then it turns into a 3-second reel versus a 15-second reel versus a 1-minute TikTok. It could change over and over, and we're being told, and how we create is being dictated by people who have, well, by people who are running a business. That's ultimately what's happening. And so the con is that while we think we're being creative, we're actually kind of slaves to somebody else's paradigm and somebody else's rules, which also means that we're also prone to, because it's a game and the game has rules, it's also very tempting to compare constantly how somebody else is playing the game, how somebody else is um, playing by the rules, right? I think we sometimes call it just comparison. We're just looking at somebody else's highlight reels. But the reality is, everybody who signs up to be a user of one of these platforms, or inter- even just stepping into running a website, there are rules around what makes something more popular, more usable, um, more clickable. All those rules um, really affect how we respond and how we live our lives. And so inevitably there's comparison. Inevitably there's a endless scroll. I mean, you know that your explore page never ends for a reason, right? There is a built-in temptation. There's a built-in mechanism for your addiction. It's literally built in for you and I to never stop scrolling, to never stop comparing, to never stop thinking there's more around the corner. Like, I don't know enough about this, but I will know enough about it if I scroll for another 10 minutes. Or, oh, I don't have any ideas. If I scroll a little bit longer, if I just see how somebody else is doing it a little bit longer, I will then have fresh ideas. Have you thought those things before? I'm not the only one, right? Tell me I'm not the only one. Of course, another con is that as you're learning, maybe even for a good reason, maybe you're actually trying to be responsible and thoughtful and trying to engage or grow your business or be wise because you're an author and you want to like actually get your message out there. All good things. But suddenly you realize it's a time suck. It literally just took away 2, 3 hours of your life and you go, what happened? I have a story about this. I got to tell you, the other day I woke up and I I want to tell you that this is not how I always wake up. I'm working on it. But I woke up the other day highly motivated to go walk on the treadmill. That is not how I wake up. I don't usually wake up this way. I'm not typically a morning person, but I woke up the other morning ready, just full heart, ready to go walk on the treadmill, listen to Bible. Then I was going to read my book while I was walking the treadmill, do a little audio, do a little reading, and then I was going to spend some time drinking coffee and talking to my family before my day got started. I won't even give you all the details, but basically, before I even got started on this plan, something came up, something needed fixing, there was a need for something on social media. And suddenly, because time of day and engagement matters, I found myself 2 hours into this task on social media. And I didn't walk, didn't listen and read my Bible the way I expected to in this gloriously slow morning. I gave 2 hours up because I had to look for something in Dropbox. I had to write something. I had to fix something. I had to edit something. I had to consider and schedule and pivot and redo. If you're not a content creator, maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm telling you, it ate my morning up. And I suddenly realized I knew this from the start, but I felt it so deeply. The cost is too great. The cost to doing it well and doing it right sometimes is too great. And I don't want mornings like that. There are lots of things you can do to curb that, but occasionally that's just the way it is. And I just share that to be honest, because I think sometimes we imagine that everybody else who does social media well, we think they just like somehow write super easily. They create content super easily. They show up camera ready and somehow pretty all the time. My friend Crystal Evanshurst, I just saw her post something about the behind the scenes of content creation. She literally posted something where she was like, listen, there is a makeup session here, there's a photo shoot, and not everybody's going to do all the different things, but she was being very honest and saying that content isn't just happening. It's that she's trying to be a good steward of what she's been given and putting her all in all into doing quality work. So yes, I think it'd be wise of us to be honest about how much time and how much energy and sometimes what the cost is to doing it well. So doubt, comparison, time, distraction. I want you to know that this has been a really big topic on my mind, and this idea of distraction and giving your moments and your actions away to things that you don't actually want to do. This is a big topic for me, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this. I'll be asking you guys some questions because I'm working on a project, and I do want your thoughts about this. So whether it's leaving a comment on YouTube or writing us an email, I would love to know how you wrestle with hating being on social media but being on anyway, or doing the things that you don't want to do. Like, you know, you don't want to be doing that, but you still do it anyway because you're stuck and a slave to what's being required of you, the tyranny of the urgent. Um, but I will say, having been on social media for over a decade, probably, I don't even know, probably close to 15 years, I'd say there are some guardrails. There are ways in which, should the Lord keep you on this platform, on the internet, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or X or whatever you're doing, if should the Lord give you the green light to stay, there are some guardrails that help you do it intentionally, that help you think about it right. There's no formula. I mean, if there was a formula, then we could say we all turn off our phones at this certain time, or we only post this way, or this it's sinful to post this, but not this. Uh, there's not rules like that, right? We have to actually go before the Lord, actually ask the Lord what He would have us to do. I currently am still on social media and I am navigating it with 5 guardrails that really make a difference in my life as a content creator. I'm not a content creator in the sense that I don't advertise or sell through my content. My content isn't itself a business, but I'm a content creator in that I'm an author. I run a business. I have a message. I'm a speaker. I care to share my life in a way where it's not just for me, but it's for others. It's content for others. That's what I mean. So these 5 guardrails I wrote about in the afterword of social sanity in an Insta world, and we'll link it in the show notes if you're interested in this short but timely and packed book. But I'm going to share those 5 points with you now. And of course, I flesh them out so much more in the book. But I hope this is helpful. I hope this is meaningful for you all. But for me personally, the number one most important guardrail for me is to write a mission statement for why I'm on social media, to know why I'm there. Without a mission statement, I will easily either squander all my time or quit when I don't feel like it, or be really jealous or envious if somebody else is doing it seemingly so much better than me. If I don't know why I'm there, I'll be just trying to absorb what other people tell me I'm there for. Does that make sense? If we don't know what our purpose is, we will let other people tell us what our purpose is. So, this is my mission statement. I'm going to read it to you. Ruth Jo Simons, as in my social media, exists to point a weary and distracted world to gospel hope through the intersection of beauty and truth in a life found in Christ. Tried to write it a little pretty. So if you don't write it with all sorts of pretty words, that's fine. But let me read it again. Ruth Jo Simons, my social media, exists to point a weary and distracted world to gospel hope through the intersection of beauty and truth in a life found in Christ. Why did I write it that way? Because I want to remember that those that I'm engaging are weary and distracted, and I am sometimes weary and distracted. And that's where what we have in common. We have in common that sometimes somebody comes on social media because they're actually trying to escape their everyday life. That someone's on social media because they're looking for answers. That someone's on social media because they're a tired mom and they don't know if they're even doing it right. Maybe they're on social media to find inspiration. And so for somebody who um, is wanting to write and illustrate and capture images through a lens of what is beautiful, what is God honoring, what is Christ exalting, what is awe inspiring. I want the intersection of beauty and truth to be what informs and gives hope to the heart, that we ultimately know the gospel in our everyday lives. That's why I'm there. So practice writing one, know why you're there, consider what it is that you're called to. Mission statement can really be simple. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it does need to remind you. If you read it out loud, if I read this out loud, if I read my mission statement out loud, it will tell me, it will inform me. I don't need to be on if I'm just scrolling and watching dumb little videos right now, wasting my time. It would probably convict my heart to read that mission statement if I'm dabbling in things that don't edify and don't grow me. That mission statement will remind me what I'm there for if I suddenly feel like posting something that is really out of character. It kind of it's a guardrail that brings me back to, why am I there? Now, that mission statement can change and you can grow in different ways and decide that you're there for other reasons, and that's fine. But I think knowing why you're there keeps you from chasing everything and keeps you from being like, what do other people want me to be? So, for example, I don't exist. I don't exist on social media primarily to sell clothes and makeup. Let's say that's not what I'm doing there. I really like clothes and makeup. Let me just be honest. And any gentlemen who are listening, I'm sorry. I know it's boring, but as a 49-year-old woman, I am actually pretty interested in how to honor the Lord with what I wear and get up in the morning and feel fresh and show up for my day. I kind of care about beauty and skincare and fashion. I do care about that. But that is not why I'm there on social media. So occasionally on my podcast, occasionally on my social media, you might hear me share something I'm interested in, but it actually is a guardrail that keeps me from suddenly not really talking about Jesus and talking about all the best deals I found on clothes. There's nothing wrong with using an account fully for selling things if that's what you want to do, but that's not why I'm there. And so it helps me. Does that make sense? It helps me. It's a guardrail for me to recognize when I'm feeling a little, distracted and stuff, that I know why I'm there. So it doesn't mean that I'm never going to share my favorite lipstick or my favorite, fashion hack, but it does mean that I know why I'm there and I stay the course. And that's the only reason why I've been able to be there for like over a decade, for going on 15 years or whatever it is. That's why I'm still there. I'm still writing the same things and I'm still caring about the same um, reasons for why I started writing and posting in the first place. My second guardrail is I invite accountability. I don't want to be my own boss with social media. I not only have a team of people who read what I write. I think anything I post actually goes through one or two people who edit, who read through a lens of like, is this actually encouraging or helpful to people? Funny story. I actually oftentimes write my post while sitting next to one of my boys on the couch. Why do I do that? Because I want them to know what I'm actually doing. I want them to know, and I want to be accountable to the fact that I'm not writing something like secretively. I'm not telling a story that nobody can vouch for. And that I'm not on my phone doing super top secret, interesting things away from my family. I invite them and I say, Mama's going to write about our trip away or how much I'm struggling as a mom who has to be away for this thing or why it's been really hard lately. I'll tell them and then I write about it and then they read it and I go, does that sound right to you? And then what do you think about that? And so it invites accountability. It helps the people in my life really know um, what I'm doing on my phone, how I'm using my phone. Troy's my husband, Troy and I regularly talk about um, both of our phone usage. He doesn't struggle. He's not on social media. He doesn't struggle much with, I mean, I'm sure he struggles in his own way, whether it's reading the news or maybe listening to podcasts. I struggle more because I'm on social media and I work online. And so we talk often and I'm accountable often to how I use my phone when it's time to turn it off. You guys have probably seen um, something I posted about our family setting our phones on top of each other and we call it the Tower of Power. So whenever we're together, it's not perfect and it's not every single moment we're together, but when we're eating a meal together, when we're out to dinner, we always have a visible reminder. We set our phones on a stack and we call it our Tower of Power because it gives us our power back to truly engage with one another, ask real questions, to get off social media, get off the internet, and to really be powerfully engaged with one another. So, um, uh, I've talked about that. You'll hear more about it, but yeah, inviting accountability is a big one. So write a mission statement for why you're on social media, invite accountability. Um, And three, I would say create from an overflow. Write, create, post from an overflow of a life that you're actually living. You see, I think all three of these are actually about being authentic and not living vicariously through somebody else's life or pretending you have a life that you actually don't have. And so, the inviting accountability is really allowing somebody to be aware of your phone usage, your social media usage, but creating from an overflow is one where I say, my friends, my actual everyday life friends, the people who I go to church with, the people who I'm in Bible study with, my coworkers, the gals who work for me and come to the office, they should be able to see a post that I posted and not wonder at all what that's about or why I said that. That if I say I've been learning and growing in the area of forgiveness, let's say, they should be able to say, yeah, we've been talking about that. She's talked to us about forgiveness for a while now. I can see why she posted that. Or, oh, she posted about how wonderful it is to see her children fruitful and growing and changing and becoming men. Something I post about. Well, my real friends and people in my everyday life, though, those who eat dinner at my house or come over for discipleship, those who come to my church, they should be able to vouch and say, yeah, her boys really are incredible young men who are showing the very fruit that she's talking about. It should not be a surprise to them. It should not come as a, not totally what I experience. Do you see how it comes out of an overflow of a life that's first lived away from social media? And should I post it on social media, it will be out of the overflow of a life. And so, a life well lived. And so I think for me, that even extends to the rule of like when I go on family vacations, when I go away with Troy for an anniversary trip, or just when I'm with other people, most often, unless it's directly work related and important in real time, I don't post anything on social media when I'm actually in the moment with others. Because when I'm there, I don't want to be thinking about what content am I going to make. I might take pictures, I might capture content so I can think about it later. I might capture a photo so that I don't forget. But if you see me post about a vacation in California, I will have already left California. It will be long gone. Like I will not be posting live from California unless it's like a trip that I need to really talk about specifically for a reason. Most often, I will have already been done with that by several days, even because it's important for me to actually live that before I share about it. I want to live the experience before anybody else reads about it or hears about it on social media. It's really important to me to have everything come out of the overflow of my heart, of my life, have time to process before I talk about it, before I go quickly sharing about things. I want it to actually be something that I've marinated on, I've thought about, I've dealt with, I've spent some time in, whether it's wonderful or it's hard, something that I'm already privately dealing with even my close friends or family before the internet hears about it. So whether, and this is why I say I'm I'm sharing guardrails for myself as a creator, as somebody who's intentionally on social media for business, creative, entrepreneurial reasons, for reasons that are aligned with me as an author or a speaker. It's a message that I'm there on purpose. But um, with even if you're there with a private account and it's your, college friends and coworkers and random people who are following you, you can still make a mission statement. You can still determine why you're there. Even if you're not a content creator and using social media for business, have you ever wondered, is this worth sharing? Why am I even sharing this? Do I really need to tell people that we all went to Maui? Do I need to actually share this, that, and the other? You can answer that more accurately if you, one, create some kind of a statement for why you are on social media at all. And maybe your answer to that is it is my photo album. If that is, then that will determine what you post about, right? But even if you have a private account and you're not using it as a creator, um, inviting accountability, creating and posting from a life well lived from overflow, it'll, it'll apply to you as well. So, number four, my fourth guardrail for me personally is to seek to serve others. It's really important for me to remember this one because I don't know that there's anything more narcissistic than a curated page full of things that you want other people to know about you. Just the honest truth. It's pretty narcissistic and pretty self focused to be like, what is the best pictures, the most well done versions of how I can tell my story? So, unless I think intentionally about serving others, I'll default to serving myself. I'll default to being like, how does this make me look? How does this make me sound? How does this make me have the very best reputation in the world? It doesn't mean that I'm trying to sacrifice doing it well or having a good reputation. Those things are important. But if I'm authentically trying to serve others, then sometimes it means that I don't have to look as good as I want to look. Or it's okay if I tell it like it is because that will serve somebody a little bit better. Or it might mean that I share something that may or may not be the most popular thing to share. But if it serves somebody, it will have served its purpose. So I think about that as being one of the five guardrails for me is to serve others. It's a good time for me to read to you Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. We use this a lot in our home with six boys, but I think it applies here as well. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Friends, this is the most countercultural. It's the most countercultural scripture because I think we live in a world where we think and we talk like everybody is trying to help each other out and everybody's trying to love one another. But the reality is, we're all actually so motivated. The reason why the world is falling apart and the reason why there's so much hurt and pain and conflict and the reason why social media can be so toxic is because everyone is doing things out of what their default setting is. The default setting is selfish ambition and conceit. Our default setting without Christ is not humility, is not considering someone more important than ourselves. It's actually me first. I'm the best. I'm the most worth it. I'm going to protect myself at all costs and I'm going to win. That's really how our default settings cause us to operate. And so we must operate on social media and everywhere else with not our factory settings, but actually with our redeemed settings, with the settings of consider others more important than ourselves. How does this glorify Christ? Is God pleased? Will others know more of Jesus through what I'm saying, what I'm doing? Does this build someone else up or is this going to bring them down? Those are important ways to look at it, and it's in those questions that we learn to have humility and consider others more important than ourselves. And then finally, maybe my favorite one, my favorite guardrail for myself that I um, repeat regularly is that I treat my social media platform like a living room. This may not come as a surprise to any of you who may have known me for a long time, but the best way I know how to consider the tone and the content and the way I want to share on social media is to kind of consider, is this how I would talk to you if you came over? If you knocked on my door and you stood on my doorstep, what would I do? If you knocked on my door, would I open the door and say, oh, come on in, but in order for you to come in, I'm going to show you all these amazing things that I bought, and how amazing I am. And, um, well, let me just tell you all about me. Talk, 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 talk. Or if you came over, would it be, oh yeah, sure, you can come in. Okay, wait, have you eaten? What do you need right now? What could be refreshing? I've got some cookies. We can put up a pot of tea. What's on your heart, friend? What's on your mind? This is why I talk about this podcast as like friends having coffee, because that's the only way I know how to show up here. Y'all, I'm not bored. Podcasting isn't the easiest thing for me. But what I want to do is to extend that living room experience and say, what would I say if you came over today? I'd probably say, friend, I'm tired too. I don't have it figured out either. I would care more about you feeling welcome and you staying. Like, really, if you came over, I'd want you to stay a while. I'd want you to feel like you could take off your shoes, hang out, feel welcome here. I want you to feel like your story matters. I'd want you to know that my story probably intersects with your story. So I'd love to share a little bit about what's going on with me, but I'd like to hear what's going on with you, because the truth is we probably have more alike than we have more similarities than we have differences. And I'd really want you to come again. I'd want you to feel like you have a friend. Do you see how, if I think about my social media platform like I do my living room, it will change the way I write. It'll change the way I post. It'll change the way I talk about the things that matter to me. Because it's not that I'm just talking at you, you're coming into a sacred and special space. And I want you to feel at home. I want to serve you well. And so I don't do that perfectly. And I'm sorry for the times that I don't. But after all these years, and as somebody who has seen the rise and fall of so many on social media, I long to run the race well. I long to persevere in it. So if those 5 tips can be your guardrails too, I feel free to borrow those. I share more about them in the afterword of social sanity in an Insta world. But those have been my 5 for a long time. I'm sure there are more that I can't think of right this minute, but they really are the 5 that keep me grounded and cause me to know why I'm there, what I should post, what I should not post, and how I can ultimately persevere in something that can be used for good or used for harm. So, as we end this episode, I want to read to you an excerpt from the end of my afterword in this book, because I think, friend, this is what I wanted to say to you today as well. I write, so friend, as you navigate these ever-changing platforms and opportunities to grow, build, strategize, and amplify your voice, let's remember what John the Baptist declared as a man with followers. John said in John chapter 3, verse 30, he says, he must increase and I must decrease. We can't go wrong, miss out, forfeit our blessings, or lose ourselves if we're followers of Christ who aim for his greatness and not our own. This one desire will shape all the others. So, friends, that's my prayer, is that our desire to see Christ increase as we decrease, that'll shape every desire we have, whether it's to reach more people on the internet or around the world, or to use our gifts wisely, or to share our story, or to know how to use this little device and all that it leads us to use it well. So I'm cheering you on. I'm praying for you. I love you all. I'm grateful that we get to have these real conversations, because the gospel applies in every single area of our lives, including how we use our social media platforms. So God bless you. And I pray that much fruit will come out of this conversation. If this is helpful, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend, share it on social media as a way for those weary and wondering folks to know what to do when they're tired and they don't know how to use social media. And as always, I'm grateful to hear from you, whether you're writing an email or posting a review. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.